Welcome back to my channel. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about your inner critic and really ask you, do you think your inner critic is serving you? Is it your voice of fear? Or is it really an ally and you just don't know it? Okay, so we all have these inner critics. I don't know whose voice it is. Sometimes it's the voice of a teacher, sometimes it's the voice of a parent, sometimes it's just your voice. But it's, the internal critic is usually a negative internal commentator. No matter what you do, your inner critic has something to say, as if the world doesn't give you enough feedback. It often plays off your anxiety, and it tends to be the voice of judgment, and it's rarely is it positive. It seems to be a voice that kind of undermines your self-value, your self-worth, and is demeaning. Some of us here are inner critic more than others. Certainly if you're battling some self-esteem and some self-worthiness issues, you're going to probably wrestle a little bit more with your inner critic than someone else. And I think that there are times when you may be very self-confident, but you find yourself out of your comfort zone, and your inner critic starts saying, what in God's name were you thinking? And and how could you have done this to yourself? And and what kind of judgment is this? And you're an idiot. And on and on and on and on. Your inner critic doesn't pop out necessarily when you're having low self-esteem issues. It can pop out anytime you feel that you're out of your comfort zone. So let's talk about this a minute, because I'm not quite sure your inner critic is so bad. And I'm not quite sure your inner critic is really the voice of fear, although it feels like that. I know when my inner critic, or my demons, so to speak, start talking to me, it's usually when I am vulnerable. And I put to you that, is your vulnerability really an opportunity for you to lean in and master something that you haven't mastered before? Because I think it is. And we often think of vulnerability as weak, and I want to reframe that. I think vulnerability is ready. So that when you are feeling most vulnerable, it really means that you're starting to find the boundaries of your comfort zone. And in doing so, you're starting to say, I don't know if I can, I don't know if I can, I don't know if I can, when the universe is really saying to you, lean in and keep going. Don't stop. Maybe slow down until you can get to a place where you feel you have a foot underneath you, but don't stop. So, your inner critic, is it signaling to you that you can't, or is it signaling to you that you're ready? I think it's signaling to you that you're ready. So, I'd like you to stop wrestling with yourself. I'd like you to stop feeling as though you're broken. I'd like you to stop feeling as though you are the only person in the room who can't. I'd like you to stop feeling that you don't have the right stuff, because you do. You honestly do. You have all the right stuff. It's a matter of you accessing it. And when you are feeling most fearful or vulnerable, it really is a time for you to lean into that vulnerability and say, why? Why? And it could be because some other critics, not internal ones, have told you or tried to convince you that you're not good enough for something or worthy enough for something. It could be that experience has showed you that you didn't prepare enough for something. But whatever that is, it's a lesson. It's a lesson. So if you have the courage and the inner fortitude, and the inner compassion and empathy with yourself to lean into those times, to say, okay, yeah, I listened too much to that person, or yeah, I had an opportunity and I blew it because I wasn't ready or prepared enough. Well, that's lessons learned. And the whole point of those things is to leave the pain and take the lesson and go forward. And I think if you can find a way to make friends with your inner critic, you'll find that your inner critic has served you in the most remarkable way. Your inner critic is really responsible, more than likely, for getting you to where you are today. You are where you are today despite that inner critic, or fear of hearing the inner critic. And that inner critic could show up in all sorts of ways and feelings. It doesn't have to be literally voices in your head. It could be a feeling of fear. It could be a feeling of vulnerability. It could be a feeling of abandonment. You're abandoning what feels okay for what may not feel so okay. But because you have worked so hard not to feel those things, you have been successful. And if you start to take the inventory of your life story, you will find that when you were most fearful is probably when you made your biggest breakthroughs. And because it felt so good afterwards, you kind of forget about the pain prior to it. So the message I'm really trying to share with you is don't be afraid to have a conversation with your inner critic. Not to say that you are, you're going to walk around looking like you're having a breakdown or anything, but I want you to be able to say, I am strong, and if I wasn't strong, I wouldn't be here, and push back on those feelings with something that is truly positive and substantial, and realize just how much you've accomplished despite all odds, despite all obstacles, despite your inner critic, despite the people who said you couldn't, despite your fear, and because of your courage. So, I put to you, not all inner critics are unfriendly. Some of them are real mentors.